Welcome to the podcast series, Aastha Unplugged. The purpose of this podcast is to help you express your highest potential as a leader. Whatever it is that holds you back in your leadership journey, let's dive straight into it. So we'll bring in guests here who are leaders in their respective domains, and they are going to share perspectives from their life journeys. And these perspectives are going to help you get access and insights into your life journey. Yeah. So sit back and enjoy this week's episode on Aastha Unplugged. Welcome to Aastha Unplugged. And today I have with me a very powerful and dynamic leader. And I'll tell you why I call him a powerful and dynamic leader, Simon Haigh. Welcome, Simon. A big hi to you and a very warm welcome.
It's a real honor to be here, and we've been talking for a little while about having this discussion, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about, some of the skills required to excel and be yourself and maximize your purpose and potential with an organization. So I look forward to this.
Lovely. Precisely. So what Simon just spoke about, that's exactly what he does. He has 30 years of experience as an acclaimed certified leadership and executive coach, a consultant, a CPD accredited trainer. He's a mentor, facilitator, a keynote speaker. Oh my God. And the list goes on. And what is striking as I go through his profile, what's striking is that he's passionate about empowering and transforming individuals and teams to achieve personal and professional success through mindset, leadership, business, and brand growth. And I think two words that catch my attention are purpose and potential. Yes. Right, which are just so fundamental, so key, but I feel quite often missed out when we talk about leadership, right? And that's what we want to dive into today. So in Aastha Unplugged today, we want to talk about who do you need to be to grow, to excel in an organization. So quite often, Simon, I hear leaders say, I'm not being acknowledged, I'm not being valued. The leadership doesn't acknowledge me. They kind of discard me. I'm an outcast. A lot of things around this, right? Simple question straight away first. Who do you really need to be if you want to excel, if you want to grow, express your potential in an organization?
Well, it's interesting you use the word need to be, because I remember once when I was having dinner at the table with my wife and two daughters, and I didn't think about it, but the words came out of my lips when I spoke to my younger daughter. And what I said was, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be, Alice, right? And ever since then, it's really got me thinking about, we don't ask people enough about who they want to be. We ask them what they want to do or what they want to be. And so that's taken me on a journey. And I guess to answer your question, really, that's about tapping into your potential, is having a sense of who you are. And so don't be surprised if you don't succeed in organizations, if you don't work on yourself first. And what I mean by that is that not many people stop and think, what are my values? What's my purpose? What's my intent for saying things? So everything starts with you first. So what are your values? What's your purpose? And what is your intent? And maybe we can talk about that. And so everything starts with you. Of course, you've got to align with the organization, but don't be surprised if you don't succeed if you haven't gone through that internal process first.
Wow, lovely. That's very powerful. But when you say you haven't gone through that internal process first, and when you talk about values, purpose, intent, where does one get started?
Well, you start at the beginning, right? You have to stop and you have to kind of think about what it is that aligns you, right? So, and one really great book that I would point out to everybody, which I didn't write, it was written by a friend of mine called Hortense Le Gentil. She's a French American management guru, and the book is called Aligned, as in the word aligned. I would recommend people read that book because what Hortense says in the book is when you're aligned, you instinctively know what to do, and you know deep down you're on the right path and everything is possible. My spin on that is to truly excel personally and professionally, you need to align with the true version of you to match your confidence with your capability. So it's about, and the reason I recommend the book is that it takes people on a journey, right? So it starts with what's happening inside your mind, and then it starts looking at values and your purpose and your skill sets. And by the end of the book, if you honestly answer the questions, and you have to be honest, right? And not many people are 100% self-honest, but if you're really honest, it kind of gives you a picture of who you are, and then you can aim towards that. So I think that's a really good way of starting with the process. That book is a great book.
Okay, lovely. Super. How do you think, so, taking this forward, even if I decide to pause today and reflect on what's going on here, uh, how do you really align with maybe a leadership who's not really doing the work, or
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
so there's a
No,
gap there.
no, I agree. And you have to be really honest, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and I've worked in organizations where there wasn't alignment with the leadership, right? And sometimes you need to take, let's be honest, you need to take jobs because it pays the bills or it's the right time, okay? And so I'm not really talking about those occasions. I'm talking about if you have the luxury to choose what you want, then that's really what we're talking about. And there's a little phrase that I use. There's an acronym, the 3 A's, right? And I got this from a great book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, with every choice, every decision you have, so this could include the decision around, I'm working in an organization and I don't feel their values align. We only ever have 3 choices. We can either accept, amend, or avoid. So in that case, if you feel, so you have to do the work on yourself first, right? You need to know what your purpose is and your values, etc. And then you need to stand back and you need to look at the organization's values, purpose, etc. And if you honestly don't feel there's alignment and you have the luxury to make the decision, right? That's a big caveat. Then first of all, do you or should you accept that you have to stay? If you have to stay, you have to stay, right? Alternatively, do you or should you try and amend the situation? Should you try and talk to people? Should you try and play your part in changing the culture? And thirdly, only if you've exhausted accept or amend, then the only alternative is avoid. You have to kind of go, right? And there's nothing in between those 3 gaps. And so I find that by having that in my mindset, it actually focused me to try and accept more readily or play my part in amending, right? But none of this is easy. It takes confidence and courage. The other thing I would say is about being authentic as well. One thing that I learned in my career was that I used to think that I had to put on this brave corporate kind of face, right? I'm quite a softie and I'm a gentle person in my personal life, right? But when I went to work, I used to put on this kind of corporate, kind of tough, macho kind of image, which is the opposite of what you should be. You should be authentic, right? Be yourself, right? Being authentic doesn't mean being weak. It doesn't mean surrendering. It means being you, right? And authenticity really leads to trust, right? If you're not authentic, how can you be sure that other people will trust you? So authenticity leads to trust. Trust can lead to engagement. Engagement then can lead to leadership performance, and then it can lead to success. And so, but I find a lot of people find it hard to be truly self-honest and self-authentic. There's a lot that I've just thrown at you there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I hear a lot of people say, Simon, is not many are willing to do the work on themselves. We want the world to change, people to change, and this is so rigid. There's rigidity around that. No, things cannot change. Fine, I'll do the work on myself. However, if the other person does not change, he doesn't give me the space to grow and express my potential. How can I possibly do? So would you like to talk a little bit about that inner camaraderie in a relationship at workplace when it takes 2 people? How do you really navigate on the ground? And so I get it. It's either accept, it's amend or avoid.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they keep avoiding. They say it is avoiding, but they're jumping from one to the other organization only to escape, run away from a situation, and only to land in another one. So where do you draw that line?
None of this is easy, right? And it takes courage and it takes confidence and it takes you to have view life as a journey, right? So you need to have a growth mindset, right? And so having a growth mindset means that sometimes things are going to go wrong. You know, things are going to go wrong. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to be in the wrong place, right? But somebody with a growth mindset views life as a journey of ups and downs, right? Whereas somebody with a fixed mindset fixates on a particular time, right? And says, if things aren't working here, then the world has collapsed and I'm not going to cope, etc., etc. So you need to stand back and look down. That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is, there are two things that we should pay attention to, right? Our head and our heart, right? At all times, pay attention to what our head is saying and our heart is saying, right? And so in terms of the head, there are two things that I want to subcomponents. I want to talk about your integrity and your responsibility, right? And so at all times, are you operating through integrity and ethics, right? Are you doing the right thing, right? And sometimes doing the right thing means calling things, right? Being courageous and saying, this isn't happening. This isn't happening the way I want it to happen. And the second part of head is responsibility. Are you taking responsibility for your personal choices, right? Nobody is going to save you or I, right? It's interesting, you know, when we buy a car or a laptop or a telephone, we get an instructions manual. Nobody gives us instructions on how to live life, right? So pay attention to your head, which is integrity and responsibility, and your heart, right? Pay attention to your heart. That's forgiveness, right? And that doesn't mean that it means forgiving yourself. You will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? Even Marshall Goldsmith, even the president of America, everybody makes mistakes. We're humans. And the second part of heart is compassion, right? Have compassion for yourself. And so I think if you can think of it through head, heart, integrity, responsibility, forgiveness, and passion, it might not mean that you're in the right place. It might not mean that it's the perfect job, but life will seem a lot easier, right? And then I can break that down even further. Integrity can lead to trust in a work environment. Responsibility can lead to inspiration in a work environment. Forgiveness can lead to innovation, and compassion can lead to retention. So again, it all starts with you, but the outcomes in organizations come from that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Would you be able to share some statistics and in terms of I don't know if statistics is the right word, but how do you think this kind of impacts people who've really spent time doing the work? And it's a journey. It's not like, oh, I've done it for 2 years, I'm done. No, I know. So people who are really into this, what kind of transformations they are able to create outside as a result of doing the work on themselves?
You
So
know,
maybe some kind of a case study or something.
it's a great question, right? And now the first answer to say is there are no statistics, right?
Right, yeah.
Most of this is qualitative, right? Qualitative. But I can tell you from my experience, you know, if you look at my website, simonhaigh.com, I've interviewed 50 or so of the world's leading thought leaders and business people like Marshall Goldsmith, the world's #1 leadership coach, people like John Mattone, the world's #1 executive coach, Sally Helgeson, all of these people. And one thing they all have in common is having a plan for the future, right? Planning your future, but don't attach yourself to the outcomes, right? Which is Buddhism, basically. Buddhism says plan for stuff, but don't attach yourself to the outcomes. And so they have that sense, and that, you know, they set a goal for the future, they do their best, but when things go wrong, they recalibrate and they start again. And one of the things I do when I coach people, one good thing to do is project yourself forward and come back, right? Because life is short, right? And we can only navigate our own journey. So one of the questions I ask people is, and I can say it here to you, if you and I were having this discussion 3 years from today, so in 2026, right? And you were looking back to today, what has had to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to say, I made the best of those 3 years? So you're 3 years down the line and you're looking back today. When I say that to people, it makes them hurry up a little bit in their thinking. It makes them realize that life is short and only you can plan, right? And so I think that's what really sets people apart who really are ambitious for this change and this growth. They set a goal for themselves. They realize that life is short. They've got to go for it. Nobody else is going to save any of us. We have to create our own bridge to the future, and they go for it, right? I guess 3 key traits that I've seen in successful people are willingness. They're willing to try. They're willing to give this a go. Open-mindedness. They're open-minded about the possibilities of success. And the most important thing is self-honesty. Self-honesty is the key, right? And self-honesty can include saying to yourself, I have to change course. This isn't the right thing. I'm wasting my time. I'm deluded. And so I've seen the common trait of all those people were those attributes: willingness, open-minded, self-honesty, a willingness to create a bridge to the future, but also to bring it back and be realistic about it. And I see it more and more in successful leaders, that they are the common traits, right? That it's amazing. It's amazing.
Wow. Willingness to try, open-mindedness, and self-honesty.
Self-honesty. And self-honesty is the key. If I said to anybody out in the audience there, hands up if you've always been self-honest, I would be worried if anybody put their hand up, because humans aren't. Like, we can't be 100% honest, right? But as long as you can try to be, that's the key.
Wow. Yes. And would you agree that either way, by doing the work on yourself, you can, so the most difficult relationships, the strained relationships at workplace, can be either turned around, or you can get clarity whether, oh, this is not going to work. Probably
exactly
doesn't honor me, and maybe I need to move on.
Absolutely. And remember the 3 A's: accept, amend, avoid. If you live by those, I do this myself, right? I used to agonize over decisions, and I used to second guess myself and question myself. But now when I'm faced with a decision, I go through that sequence. Should or do I accept? If I shouldn't, or I can't, should I amend? And if I can't, there's only one other option. And there's no point in whinging or complaining or worrying about your decision-making process. That's important, because when we make decisions, we can actually never be sure they're the right decision, right? So we do need some tool, and I think that's a valuable tool. And it's all about self-awareness and self-reflection, and it's interesting because there's an organization in America at the Rice University in Texas called the DOER, DOERR, Institute of New Leadership. And you asked about, can you measure this stuff? Well, they're doing world leadership work in what are the core attributes for a leader to become even more successful as a leader, and to see their leadership growth journey grow, right? And to put some sort of mainly qualitative measurements around this. And they've come down to 5 key areas that, if you want to give yourself the best chance to be successful in life, the 5 key areas are: number 1, you need to know yourself. So you need to know yourself. So self-awareness, which we've talked about. Number 2 is you have to control yourself. So self-regulation, balance, decision-making, perseverance, resilience. So know yourself, control yourself. The third thing then is you need to be aware of others. So cross-cultural resourcefulness, ethical responsibility, empathy. And finally, a 4th is working with others. So there's knowing yourself, controlling yourself, being aware of others. And the 4th is working with others, which, not surprisingly, is the biggest one, because we have to work, and that includes conflict management, team building, collaboration, delegation, negotiation, communication. And the 5th one is growing yourself, which is growth mindset, having a love of learning, and also accepting that mistakes are inevitable. You have to make mistakes to learn, right? As long as you don't keep making mistakes, as long as they're not too big, and as long as you don't cover them up. So in summary, this is a journey, it's a journey, and it's a journey of up and down. But as long as you're self-honest, willing, and open-minded, you'll see it unfold. And just finally, there are 2 types of luck in life, right? There's the luck that we're born with, and you and I couldn't choose which part of the world we lived in. We couldn't choose our sexuality. We can't choose those things. That's luck, right? There's a second type of luck, which I call strategic serendipity, which is a posh way of saying you can make your own luck, right? So the harder you work, the more honest you are, the more willing, the more open-minded, that you increase the chances. There's no guarantee, but you increase the chances of this success journey. And that's a common trait of successful people: strategic serendipity. They work hard, they chase the right opportunities, they listen to the right voices in their heads rather than the wrong voices. Like our brains, my brain and your brain, are our best friends, and also our worst enemies, right? And successful people listen to the best friend, not the worst enemy.
Wow. Okay, great. So what I'm hearing very loud, and I think repeatedly, that's what you're saying. It just boils down to me doing the hard work. It's no
Yep,
rocket science, but doing the hard work consistently,
absolutely.
and stop being a victim, stop sulking, taking charge, and being
Absolutely.
active, right? That's what it is.
Absolutely. My only caveat with that is you said, stop being a victim, stop sulking. I agree with that. But also be gentle on yourself, be easy on yourself. When you
Absolutely.
make, don't beat yourself up. You're not, I genuinely think we're on this planet to do two things. We're on this planet to enjoy ourselves,
Yeah.
and we're on this planet to be nice to people. And if you can't be nice, at least don't harm other people. Both of those are nice things, right? So when you make a mistake, when you do something wrong, accept it and try and learn from it. And there's a little saying, every failed deal in life is a down payment on the next deal, as long as you learn in the process.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yes. Yeah. But the only thing, Simon, why, I think in being a victim, when you're sulking, and it's not just because of what's happening to you. Like you rightly said, one is what other people are doing to me. Two is the whole where you said I'm beating myself for the whole lot of expectations that I've put
Yep.
set up, and why did I not do this, or maybe I could have done it in a different way. But how much of me being in victim mode or stepping out of it, or maybe even being easy on myself, do you link to the culture of an organization or the
Yeah.
impact of maybe the leadership it flowing down? uh,
Yeah. No, it's significant. It is significant. And so it's everything I've said, it's easier said than done, right? So as soon as you get sucked into a corporate environment, and I've worked for big multinationals, Dell and other companies, and they have their own culture. Like,
yeah.
culture exists everywhere. We have our own culture, we have a family culture, we have a community, we have a national culture. Every company has its own culture, then every team within the company, every clique within the company. And there's a lot of cultures to navigate. And I guess, you need to just accept the fact that culture is coming at you from various different directions, right? And yes, of course, you need to fit in, you need to align, you need to be cohesive, you need to be inclusive, okay? But you can still have a strong core, right? Still have a strong core, and try and lead by example, right? And I guess there's 6 important life skills that I think schools should teach us. And first of all is, how to learn from your mistakes and failures is number 1. Number 2 is how to take action without knowing the outcomes, right? None of us know the outcomes. And number 3 is how to take responsibility for your actions. Don't blame the culture of the organization. Don't allow that to say that made me become corrupt, or that made me become lazy, or that made me become cynical, right? You're the one who's making you do those things, right? Yeah. The only thing we can accept, the only thing we can control in life is our reaction to life. Number 4 is how to stop taking things personally, right? Just because an organization doesn't think that you're a fit, or just because things aren't going well, I've found in my career, most of the times it's not personal. Most of the time it's the organization has the wrong culture, right? And then number 5 is you need to challenge your beliefs and be prepared to change your mind. And then finally, question what you've been taught as well. We're all taught this, but I found often in life that sometimes things that we don't expect to happen are the right things, right? So I think it's turning a lot on top of its head, and again, being open-minded. But yeah, it's not easy. Sometimes you have to fit into a corporate culture, and again, you have to be honest. Is this a place I can stay for X years or X months, or is this not the right place for me? Again, it takes courage. It takes courage.
Takes courage, I think. Yeah. True. I agree. Lovely. There's a word which is doing rounds. We talk a lot about it, and that's called emotional intelligence. The whole terminology.
Yeah.
And when it comes to leadership, or when it comes to being part of a corporate culture, corporate world, um, how important do you think, or rather, how critical it is for people to understand? You spoke about self-awareness, which
Yeah.
is the fundamental thing. But talk to me a little bit about the whole
Emotional
emotion.
intelligence. It's critical. It's critical, right? And so Daniel Goleman wrote the book in 1995 about emotional intelligence, and there are 4 aspects. There are 2 columns and 2 rows. There's self-awareness, then there's self-management, situational awareness, and relationship management. And so everything starts with you, as we've said, self-awareness, right? But that's only a quarter of the picture. You still have to manage yourself, which is self-management. Then you have to read the room, right? You have to understand the politics of an organization. You have to get a sense of who's who in the zoo. You need to get a sense of the culture, the environment. And so you need to be savvy. You need to pick up the clues, right? And then fourthly, you need to manage relationships, which is effectively empathy. And I actually think it's easy to say that, right? But what I find is that not many people talk about how can you in organizations improve your emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence drives how we communicate with each other, how we build trust, how we build relationship. It's the core of everything. And so some of the things that I think we need to think about more training, more learning around is, for example, notice how your behavior affects others, right? Our behavior is always affecting other people, but we don't like to question our own behavior, right? So try and notice how your own behavior affects others. Take responsibility for your words and actions. Try and learn to motivate yourself and others. Maintain a positive attitude. People really want positive people around. Use active listening. Seek feedback and accept criticism, which is, again, that's difficult, right? And that's important because it allows you to interact with other people. It makes you vulnerable to an extent, but it also builds you. Learn to respond to conflict instead of reacting. Be assertive when you communicate rather than passive, and practice self-awareness. Practice it. You know, one of the things I do when I coach people is I ask them to ask themselves 3 little questions every morning for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, right? 3 little questions. It takes 10 seconds, right? And the 3 questions are: do I like myself? Do I trust myself? Do I respect myself? Right? Maybe they don't answer yes, right? But the fact that they've spent 10 seconds, that's all, asking those questions, the chances are they're going to get closer to themselves and build that emotional intelligence. I don't know why we don't do this more. You know, we're rushing around the world, but if you just ask yourself those 3 questions every day, you are going to, even for 10 seconds, you're going to meet yourself, you know, and meeting yourself allows other people to meet you more effectively.
Do I like myself? Do I respect myself? And do I trust myself?
Yeah, just ask yourself those questions every morning. Even if you can't answer yes, even if you don't like, trust, or respect, the fact that you're doing it, you're connecting with yourself. We don't do that enough, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that's powerful. Okay, I want to hear from you where, would you want to share something from your life, how, when you got on with the journey of doing this work on yourself, what is the transformation that you've been able to cause?
Okay, that's an easy one. And so I was Marshall Goldsmith, the world's #1 leadership coach. I've been blessed. He's kind of mentored me. He's written the foreword to a couple of my books, and I've met him a couple of times. And 4 years ago, I was struggling with my own confidence, right? And where I was going with my business and my own trajectory. And I spoke to him, and he said something to me that will never, ever leave me, right? And it's a very simple statement. And he said, Simon, all you need to do is match your confidence with your capability, right? And it's easy for him to say that, and it's an easy statement, right? But it's really, for 4 years, I've really dug into what that could mean. And it can mean many things, right? And so the way I translate that is that most of us are more capable than we allow ourselves to think, right? You know, confidence, lack of confidence is one of the biggest problems in all areas of the world. Imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, all of these things. And so it's really forced me to look at this whole area of potential and how do we push our growth zone. And so that's what I did. I looked at the whole area and I realized that there are 4 zones in life, right? And we can choose where we want to be. There's the comfort zone, right? We can all live in the comfort zone if we want to, and it's safe and easy, but you're not really going to achieve the great things. So you need to then move into the next zone, which is the discomfort zone, which inevitably means you've got to experience a lack of self-confidence. You have to feel that the butterflies in your stomach, and you have to feel that, right? That means something's happening, right? You're on a journey. That's when you want to find excuses, though, right? And that's when you're affected by other people's opinions. So you have to push through, and then you move into the learning zone where you can acquire new skills and deal with challenges. And then finally, the growth zone where you find your purpose. And I experienced this, one little example of this, right? A year ago, last month, I was in London and I had to give a keynote speech on a very important subject to a very important audience, right? And I was so nervous, right? Normally I'm okay, but the nerves got the better of me. And I don't mind saying, before the event, I nearly rang. I nearly didn't tell the truth. I nearly rang and said, I was going to say, I'm sick, I can't come, right? I don't mind, because that's vulnerability is authenticity. I don't mind sharing that. But I didn't. And I went and I pushed through, and I noticed, I was scared and I was nervous, but I noticed in the moment that I had to start speaking, I could feel a whoosh of adrenaline. Adrenaline met my fear, and the adrenaline was like a lifeboat. It pushed me forward, right? And so I've learned that even in those moments it's those moments of fear, right? That's when you truly meet yourself, right? That's where you truly meet your potential. That's where and the potential is behind you, and it will meet you if you allow yourself to have a growth mindset and push through. And so I experienced that myself. And we can all experience that if we want it, right? But you've got to want it. You've got to be brave, courageous, and you've got to be kind to yourself afterwards. Straight afterwards, I didn't hang around for the gossip. I went straight off, and I went and had a nice, cool drink afterwards. So you have to look after yourself as well. So I've learned that potential is actually there to meet the fear if you're prepared to go through it.
Wow. That's amazing. Great. So I think, Simon, this was very powerful, very, very beautiful. And I think a lot of action items also that people know, this is where I can get started. This is what is really needed. And what I just see most of the times, a lot of times people know a lot of things. The problem is not, I do not know what can be done or what could be a possible immediate action in this scenario. It's just that they're stuck in the whole implementation because of whatever is there inside, the mess, the disconnect that's there, and they are not able to really take that action. They do not do that. And doing the work in itself is like a big, big, big deal. I see leaders who are 30, 40 years in the organizations doing extremely well, supposedly, I'd say. Within them, it's an utter mess, and when it comes to doing the work, they just don't feel like doing it. They're so given up on things.
No, I agree.
And I think that just makes me think that's why you have such a handful of people who really enjoying their corporate tenure, literally, who feel, wow, I'm going to work today, I'm going to create this. It's a very few people.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And often, not always, the people who do it have been through some life event, right? They've had some sort of awakening or spiritual awakening or whatever. And not necessarily. I'll let you into kind of a secret, right? There's a two-step secret that I've kind of noticed. Number one is accept that your capabilities are worthy. Everybody, there's 8 billion people on this planet, right? Even the people we don't like, trust, or respect, they are equal to us, right? There are 8 billion equal individuals on this planet, whether we like, trust, or respect them, right? So everybody is worthy, right? Then you need to match your confidence with your capability and do the work. Most importantly, accept and be comfortable that success does not lie in the middle. Success is not in the middle. And what I mean by that is that you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and also not always being liked, right? And that's what I mean by success is not in the middle. You can't, and Marshall Goldsmith said this to me, and a wonderful man from America called Scott Ballard, who's the confidence coach, he said, that's his quote, success does not sit in the middle, right? In other words, once you've done the work and you've worked on yourself and you build your profile, that's when you'll notice that people will start disliking you or start questioning you. That's when it gets harder and you have to push through. When that's happening, you're on a positive journey, And so it's a constant journey of discomfort. It's that constant 4-stage growth journey.
Wow. Yes. Lovely. So you need to be ready. You need to be
Ready.
willing to do the work.
But the key is, if you're willing, open-minded, and self-honest, you'll keep pushing forward. Also, you've got to have boundaries. You have to protect yourself. You have to be courageous and say no, right? But if you are honest, if you are completely honest, nobody can really get to you. Nobody can get in here. And Viktor Frankl said that in the book Man's Search for Meaning, when he was in Auschwitz concentration camp. Nobody could stop him being honest. They could harm his body, but they couldn't stop his mind being honest. If you are as honest as you can be, the sky's the limit with potential, as long as you go through the process.
Wow, got it. So then you need to be, you said you talked about quite a few things, and maybe somebody, whoever is listening, it's not about, oh, I've got to do this also, this also, this also. What I believe, Simon, is all of this. It's like a, if I may say, it's a journey, and one leads to the other. Certain things, kind of keep happening together.
Yeah.
So when you're being honest with yourself, you will figure out certain things. You will be able to manage certain things beautifully. You will see progress in this area,
Yeah.
and then progress there. So
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, this.
No.
Very discreet, but it's all together.
Exactly. And so if you ever get an email from somebody that says pay here and this will guarantee success, don't pay for that, because it's a mixture. Really, it's a mixture of four things. It's a mixture of imagination, drive, curiosity, and attitude. So imagination is daydreaming. Sometimes you need to daydream. Sometimes you need to take time out. You need to generate ideas. Then drive is optimism, resilience, determination. Curiosity is an eagerness to learn, a willingness to learn from mistakes, and honesty. And then attitude is positivity, embracing change, and being proactive. And if you can do all those things, you give yourself the best possible chance to improve strategic serendipity, right? And if it doesn't improve, you need to be self-honest there, and maybe you need to change tack, right? But there's no single algorithm, right? But if you are willing, open-minded, and self-honest, you give yourself the best chance to navigate these clouds of success.
Right. And this last one, where a lot of people, you said, focus on maybe the journey, the future that you want, but don't get attached to the outcomes, the results. But I see a lot of people, trying to do the work where they want a tangible outcome, which is fine, nothing wrong with it. But can you get me this? And then maybe I'm ready to do the work.
Yeah.
Can you get me this? And pretty much this is linked to what you just said. But so the whole thing around, how would you want to, put across this to the people, to the leaders, to executives who want to progress, who want to move ahead and create X, whatever that X is for them. But they're like, I'm going to do this if you guarantee me X. Or doing this work, putting in time and money, will it get me X?
Yeah. So I can give you some statistics on that, right? So those people who sit back and believe that they can develop through others, right? So develop through being dictated to or directed by others, the chances of a success is 20%, right? Those people who are proactive and do what I said, the chances of success are 70%, right? And that comes from a couple of sources, right? And so what would you rather, 70% or 20%, right? And so now the 70% takes a lot more effort, right? You have to do it yourself, right? There's a great book called The Success Factor. That kind of is reflected in this book. The book is called The Success Factor by Ruth Gotian, Gotian. And she talks about this, don't be waiting for other people to be saving you, right? Nobody, no boss, no wife, no child has ever navigated my journey for me. We can only build our own bridges for the future, right? And so it's nice to think you might have an employer providing everything for you, but they're not going to. So develop yourself by doing. That's the key thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Simon. I think this was powerful. A lot of takeaways. It was such a pleasure. And I think, would it be okay if people go ahead and share your LinkedIn profile? They can
Absolutely
follow you, connect with you. Super.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure a lot of you would want to check out, like I said, Simon's profile, the kind of work that he does. And there are so many nuggets on the profile itself in terms of the content that's available there. And if you think you want to do that, go ahead and connect with him, and you may want to work with him. So,
and it's been lovely chatting with you. You raised really excellent questions, great questions. And I can see in the questions you asked and also in your responses, both your verbal and your non-verbal responses, you really get this, you really understand this. So I feel as though we're connected.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Such a pleasure, a huge learning experience for me as well. Really grateful for you sparing this time. And thank you so much, Simon.
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.